What's going on, guys? Three Wheels on the Block, back again. Got a C1500 behind me. We're going to be doing some work on. As you can see, it's been a little smashed up in the front. That's alright. That's what we're here to do. This is a truck for a friend of mine who actually got his truck from his dad. So there's a little backstory behind that, and I'll fill you guys in on that later. Let's get to it. Alright, quick rundown on the truck. As you can see, it took a hard lick right here in the front. Down in this area, nice crease there in the bumper. Of course, we're not going to reuse that. Broke the grill, pushed back the radiator core support, bent all this up, bent the hood up pretty good. As you can see, it's a pretty nasty lick there. So it bent the hood up. Of course, it damaged the AC condenser. Also damaged the radiator. The fan still spins freely. I was able to drive it up on the trailer when I loaded it up, so we'll be replacing all of this. Looks like the passenger side fender is probably okay. It may be tweaked a little bit. The driver's side fender is definitely tweaked here. You can see where the paint is chipping on the metal and where it's got a nice fold right there. So definitely tweak this fender a little bit. We'll have to see if we can straighten that out. Alright, you guys can see I had Papa George here give me a hand real quick, pulling this front bumper off of the truck. The front bumper is gone, and it looks mangled, as you guys saw before. So just looking real quickly, at the front of the truck, doesn't look like the frame got too tweaked. So it looks like the bumper took the force of the impact, and since it took the force, bumper actually, the frame horns where the bumper would mount to, actually still pretty decent, so I think we're in good shape there. I will double check the specs and measure to make sure they're not out of specification. I'm going to go ahead and pull these bolts out of the radiator core support so we can go ahead and get the core support off, get ready to put the new one in. Alright, interesting tidbit of information here. If you look at this wire loom, it is extremely brittle. Extremely brittle. I mean, this stuff is crumbling and falling apart. So if you have an older vehicle that you're working on, prepare to replace this stuff, because this is not really doing anything at this point. Because it is so dry rotted and it's literally falling apart as I'm working on removing the wiring from the truck. So I'm going to have to replace all this, make sure we keep these wires protected, and then go on the new front end. Something to think about. Alright, got the front radiator core support off, radiator, bottom shroud, and a couple things are still on the truck, but we're going to wrap it up tonight. This is the progress. You can see the core support's removed. Got the radiator sitting there on what's left of the, or in front of what's left of the fan shroud. There's a little bit of cooling on the floor. But she looks pretty decent. Got a little bit of work to do on this fender right here. See, it's got a little bit of a bow right through here, so I'm gonna work on straightening that out. And pull this off in the morning. Get the transmission lines loose over here. And I think that that will get us ready to take care of putting on the new parts. So that's it for tonight. See you guys in the morning. What's going on, guys? It's the next morning. In here, just going over a couple things. Getting ready to pull this radiator out of here and the lower fan shroud, and then it will be time to go ahead and fit the new radiator core support and start putting this thing back together, get it cleaned up, and get it ready for paint. Alright, got the radiator out of the way, all the lines disconnected, and I was working over here on this fender. If you remember, there was a big buckle right here, so start working this out. Got a little bit more work to do, get this straightened up. Come around this way, you can see this fender's pulled out to the left. It's got a little bit of a hump right here. You can see my finger going across there. Alright, if I put this up here, you can see there's a big hump right down through there. It should be nice and straight like it is here. The top of the fender is pretty straight. There's a little bump right here where this got pulled that direction on the front of the impact, or when the truck was impacted from the front. So I'm gonna go in here and work this back with a hammer, straighten this a little bit out here. I think this will be a part that can be recovered, so I'll have to replace that fender. Alright, got everything cleared up in the front, and while the paint's drying, we're going to do a little bit of sanding work on the body, a little prep work, getting it ready for paint. You can see all this is now cleaned up. A little Rust-Oleum professional grade on there. That'll keep everything from fly crusting any further. Just doing this since we took this apart. Normally if you do a restoration, I guess most people pull the body off and powder coat and all that stuff, but he's just going to use this as a driving truck so that he can enjoy. So he wasn't too concerned about that. I just want to make sure I keep any of the rust down that I can. Well, I figured this was worth noting. I'm removing the stainless trim here around the fender well on the truck, and a couple of screws came out real good, and I've got a couple like this one and here that is stripped out, so I had to use a screw extractor. I don't know if you guys have ever used these before. I have a couple type here. One are these guys here that you put in the end of the screw. This did not work very well, but I have this set here, which I'm not promoting anything, but I will tell you about a product that works. This is a speed out. I do not remember where I got these from, but it has a drilling head on one side, and on the opposite side there is an extractor, and it worked really well. I was surprised. I didn't think it was going to come out of there. I thought I was going to drill the head of the screw off to get these off of here, but as you can see on the end of the drill there, it is out. So we're going to continue with the process. Real quick, over here on the fender, this is supposed to be underneath the fender. As you can see, it's on top of there for a pretty good little margin. So I think that this fender may have got tweaked down a little bit. I also noticed back here at the door, which this door's been rehung, so I don't know how accurate the door is hung, which it looks like it's actually hung a little too high in the front compared to the back. The back's low here, and the front seems to be really high. So it's going to take a little bit of muscle to get this where it needs to be at, but everything else seems to line up okay. Alright, after I got this in here and after I evaluated the situation, turns out that this particular core support is a different year, which I think will work fine for bolting up the headlights and everything. Where it is different is the wiring. This is a late 90 model harness plug that plugs in at the firewall, which is over here. And as you can see, this plug and the plug that are there are completely different. So that is not going to work. I thought, well, I'll just cut and splice them together. And turns out that the wiring is slightly different. Yep, it is slightly different. There's one additional blue wire. It comes out of here. So I will either have to splice these together, or I will have to re-pull the harness I pulled out of the old one, that's the old radiator core support, and put it back in through the new core support. Alright, this is the battery tray from the truck. As you can see, it's got a little bit of surface rust here. The rest of it actually looks really good. So what I'm going to do is clean this up a little bit, wire brush, and we're going to paint this and put this back in the truck instead of replace it with a new one because it didn't get damaged in the accident. But always be sure to prep anything that's rusty like this, surface rust or paint peeling. Prep it properly and get some paint on it, otherwise it will eventually fail. And you don't want your battery falling out of your vehicle. So while we're waiting on the paint to dry, again, went over here and started splicing together the old harness and the new harness here, so that way I don't have to try to pull all the way through and replace all of that. Plus these wires are in better shape and the wire loom's in better shape. The connectors were in better shape, so we're going to use this. And I put a crimp connector in here. Back. Crimp connector. Got crimped in there real good. And then we'll use some heat shrink over top of that to protect these, and it'll be in wire loom, so should be in good shape. So we're going to test the lights, make sure we have headlights and turn signal lights. It's always a good idea to test your electrical connections before you finalize everything and close it up. Otherwise, you got to go back and work backwards and figure out what you missed. Alright, all the lights look good. Looks like we have a high beam out on this side. I'm going to put new lamps in. This is just to test the wiring, so everything looks good. Moving on. Alright, just wanted to point out one thing that I missed on the wiring. Right here is the high beam driver and passenger side for a late model Chevy truck. The harness I had one wire. The new harness had two. They were individually split off, which happens in the old harness but a lot further downstream. And in the new harness they run all the way back to the firewall connector, which is back there. So just wanted to point that out if you guys happen to be doing something like that. That was the issue. That's why one of the high beams wasn't working. In fact, it was on the driver's side. So that. Did a little bit of cleaning on the engine bay. Get all that muck off the firewall. A little bit of junk down here on the frame. Got all that cleaned up. Cleaned up pretty good for an old truck. Still a bit of dirt on here. I don't know if it's going to come off or not. So I'm going to try scrub brush on a couple things. But for the most part, that portion's done. We'll go ahead and jump back on the body work. As you can see, I got a little bit of primer action going there. So we'll jump back on that, get this thing ready for paint.